Okay, welcome everybody to our October 19th, 2022 Technical Advisory Committee for TransCom. We have a few people here in person, so welcome, and welcome to everyone online. My name is Bob Barnhill. I'll help to chair the meeting today. So first we need to approve the meeting minutes from July 27th, 2022. So we'll take a motion in a second, and then we have some people here in person. And so if everyone online could be prepared to quickly unmute, and we can all give a voice vote, and then we can move on from that portion. So do we have a motion? Don't be shy. Okay, Paul Larson has made the motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Looks like that was from Boyd Davis. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The minutes are approved. So we'll just move right along to item number 2 and turn the time over to Ben.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So the first item that we'll talk about today is a board modification to the 2023-2028 Transportation Improvement Program. That's exciting, being that this 2023 TIP has just been approved the early part of October. And we will start with the presentation. So this first board modification, or this board modification that we will talk to, is PIN number 20327. This is the South Weber City project. This is the Weber River Parkway trailhead connection. And it actually is going to address phase 3 of this project. So maybe before we start, I'd like to just review quickly with you the process for the TIP. As many of you are aware, hopefully you're aware, and we'll talk a little bit about it more, is the letters of intent just were submitted here the early part of October. We will then move into the project evaluation concept report phase, and into the reviews and the evaluations the first of the year. And that'll bring us all the way around to where we are here back in October. We'll go into more detail on this, but I wanted to bring this to your attention to remind you of the length of the process and the steps that are necessary. So back when we first reviewed this project was a couple of years ago, when South Weber City presented this request through a letter of intent, and they identified 5 phases of the Weber River Parkway Trail. At the time, or 2 years ago, the Technical Advisory Committee in the evaluation and review identified this as a priority trail project for the active transportation system in the area. And this trail was accelerated with the work that was being done on US 89, because it enabled a box culvert to be placed here under 89. So this project was underway. The Technical Advisory Committee recognized the significance of the project, and so they recommended phase 1 there of the trail to align with the box culvert. Since that time, last year, we had the opportunity to review and recommend additional phases to the Weber River Parkway trailhead. Phase 2 was recommended, and then with the amount of funds due to the new transportation bill, it was recommended that we fund an additional phase, or that we fund phase 3 as well, so that this trail system could move forward. So with all these phases underway, the box culvert now is in place. It was identified that, hey, if we can get this project through the evaluation process and begin our construction design, we could have phases 1, 2, and 3 online about as the box culvert comes up. And so as we identified phase 1, phase 2, and in phase 3, we thought we'll get this meeting put together. So in the process of putting the meeting together to initiate the orientation of the project, to discuss with the project, UDOT project manager, as well as all of those involved, it was identified that another organization, the Utah North Trail organization, had actually gone and identified and was able to secure funds for phase 3 of this project, thus making the funding that was for our phase 3 non-usable. Now, we were looking at that, the potential that we have phases 1, 2, and 3 done for the project. We're very early in the process. An idea came up in which we want to bring to the TAC committee. So normally when we are looking at a board modification, we look at, well, let me switch the slide here. So here's the thought that's being presented to the board mod, or to the TAC committee here. We're recommending that we move the funds from phase 3 to phase 4. And then this takes back to an evaluation process. As you'll look there on the phases 1 and 2 and 4 are right next to each other. Last fall or early this spring, when we were evaluating the project and we were deciding to come to the TAC and present to the TAC, we were debating between phase 4, which would align with phases 1 and 2, and phase 3. Not quite sure which one would bring us more benefit, but then realizing that phase 3, there must be benefit because it's the 3rd phase. And so that was the recommendation that was brought before the TAC committee. So if we were to bring in phase 4 or move the funds from phase 3 to phase 4, I wanted to show you the benefits that we would get. Now, normally when, this is what I meant to say earlier, normally when we have a change of scope, that project essentially comes off the program and comes before the board, comes before the TAC for reevaluation, recommendation, then goes to TransCom and then goes to the regional council for approval. This is essentially a change in scope. Although it's a new phase of the project, this would enable us to move this project right along, thus allowing phases 1, 2, 3, and 4 to all be constructed here in a very near future. We'd be able to initiate the environmental document, taking care of all of the phases, or the 3 phases that are funded with federal funds, and enabling this project essentially within the next year and a half to be up, ready for use. If we were to wait, now they have submitted a letter of intent for phase 4 and a letter of intent for the other phases. But if we were to wait, so here we are in October, it would be a year from now before we would know if phase 4 was recommended and programmed. And we can do that. That would be the prerogative of the Technical Advisory Committee. But where phases 3 and 4, actually phase 4 cost a little less. I'm going to move. So you can see that phase 4 costs $312,000. And phase 3 was $318,000. So we're actually saving a little. But amount wise, or the demand on the program, there's not much of a difference. And so we see that it's quite a benefit if we're able to move forward, moving that or making that adjustment to the project scope so that we're focusing on phase 4 rather than phase 3 to accomplish this project. Let me pause there and see if I made any sense. Are there questions or are there any comments about the recommendation?
Would you just tell us, Ben, which colors are which phase on the, which phases on the map?
Yes, thanks, Wayne. So phase one is the purple. Actually, no, sorry. Phase one is the green. Phase two is the purple. Phase three is the blue. Phase four is the yellow. Phase five is this large brown one in the middle. And then phase six is up here. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm wondering if we can hear from the project sponsor what the plans are for phase 5 and 6 for further connectivity. How far out they might be. Or if you know.
I can give you the information that I'm aware. So they've submitted the letters of intent. If this proposal wasn't accepted by the TAC committee, we do have a letter of intent for phase 4 and a letter of intent for phase 5. Phase 5 is a bit more costly on the project. It's about 600 and something thousand. There are parts of phase 5 that, I mean, the trail can be used without the full development of phase 5. You can use alternative routes around it. But they do have a letter of intent to request for future funding. And in phase 6 is actually part of a road construction project. So the widening of Cottonwood Drive up here is required for this portion of the trail project to be included in phase 6. So that's actually part of a letter of intent, but it's for a road rehab or road reconstruction. Any other questions? Now I gotta. Okay. Then Robert, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, so we would be looking for a motion to approve the modification to this project as Ben has described it. It's pretty straightforward if we do another voice vote like we did earlier. If everyone's comfortable with that, I suppose if there's votes where it's unclear, the majority, we could perhaps go back and count them individually. Does that seem reasonable? Have everyone just vote by voice like we did earlier? Okay. So we will go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. This is Jacob with Centerville.
Jacob with Centerville, a motion to approve the adjustment. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. It's Alma with UTA.
Alma with UTA with the second. So prepare to unmute those of you online, and all in favor of approving this modification, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Great. And any opposed? Okay, so this modification has been approved. And we'll let you proceed, Ben, with the next item.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone. So going back to the slides then, we have before you, there's a copy electronically. I believe those are available.
Excuse me, Ben. Sorry. One point of clarification. The motion would actually be a recommendation that this board modification be approved. This will need to go to TransCom in a couple weeks for final approval.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. So we're not the final decision maker on it. So a recommendation to the next committee to consider. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Robert. Yes, would you please? And then if we can pull the slides back up. So the next thing that we want to review with the Technical Advisory Committee is the list of letters of intent received. So Rosie's making that available right now. But what you will find is about 13 pages of projects. And the intent of this list is for you to review that, make sure that your projects are on that list. That way we can do a high level evaluation, make recommendations as to what concept reports would be most successful in your attempt. But just to orient you with the way this form is laid out, or the way the table, so it's sorted first by county. And rather than just do the urbanized area, we felt that it was important for you to see all of the projects that were being submitted for letters of intent. So those folks here in the Ogden-Layton urban area, normally we would review those from Box Elder County, Brigham City, Willard and Perry, then through Weber County, and Davis County. But Salt Lake County is also on this list, and in Salt Lake County, we'll be able to see all of the projects that were submitted, or all the letters of intent submitted. So they're sorted first by county, then they're sorted by project sponsor or the city. The project name, the project location, and then a brief description of the project. Now, some of these that were submitted, we've tweaked them just a little, just to make them a little smaller so that we can have a brief project description. Then we have the estimated project cost, the federal funds that are being requested, and the local match. And in the requested funding program that is being requested by the project sponsor. Now, where we will go from here is, as staff, we've gone through and we're just finishing up, we'll finish tomorrow, a high-level evaluation on the eligibility of the projects for that particular program. We've also made, on some projects, we've made recommendations that perhaps, rather than this program, that you consider submitting a concept report for another program. Or if there's a concern, maybe the facility is not functionally classified currently, that we will evaluate the project, but that project is pending a classification update. And or if it's a project that is a widening or a capacity type project, and it's not on phase 1 of the regional transportation plan, we will point that out as well and say, you're welcome to submit a letter or a concept report. But at the same time, you need to be working on updating or making a request that the regional transportation plan be updated. So what you will see here the first of the week is you will get an email from WFRC. In that email, it'll include a memo that'll give kind of the brief instructions, the intent of what that memo is about. Then there will be a link in that memo that will take you to a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet will identify every project. Next to that project name and description, it'll look just like this, only there'll be an additional 2 columns. One column will be telling you, yes, it's an eligible, or no, it's not eligible for that particular funding source. Then the funding source link will be highlighted so that all you need to do is click on that link. It'll take you right to the web page that'll have the concept report forms, the cost estimation forms, the emission analysis forms, or in some cases, the TLC form, or the transportation and land use form. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of what projects were submitted. If your project's not on this list, please let me know ASAP, or as quick as you can. I guess that would mean the same, but as quick as you can sounds even more urgent. So that we can get that included in the list. We can get you the information necessary to begin the next phase. Are there any questions with the list or with the process where we're at? Awesome. Well, then that takes us then to the next item there, and that's the schedule for 2024-2029 TIP. And that brings us back to this table. So as we talked earlier here, we've received the letters of intent. That's that list that we need you to review, make sure we got your projects on there. We'll then make a request to you, and that letter or request will go out next week requesting that you now submit a project evaluation concept report. It's a form, you fill in the blanks, you provide the information. There's an emission analysis form for the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, or CMAQ, as well as the Carbon Reduction Program, or the CRP program. Then all of those programs also have a cost estimation form. And then for the Transportation Alternative Program or the TAP funds, there's also a concept report form and a cost estimation form. That information needs to be to us by the early part of December. And then we'll begin our evaluation process early part of December, which will take us through the month of March, which will include a project field review where we will meet with the project sponsor on site. And remember, as we discussed with this committee here, next year, this upcoming process, we're going to try something maybe a little more unique where we have a hybrid type field review where any of you, if you want to participate, would be able to click onto that link and participate on a particular project. We will have some, we'll get into more details on that. There will be some limited abilities to ask questions or that, just so we can move quickly. It generally takes us a couple of days and we're moving fairly fast. But we want as many as who would like to be involved to be involved. That's where we are in the process for the 2024-2029 TIP. Any questions? For online? Oh, we got them. They got them. Except I'll get you a set, right? Any questions as far as the process? Robert, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Ben. So moving on to item number 3, an information item from UTA, and I believe Michael Goldman is online. So if you're ready and available, you can go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, thank you. It's not letting me share my screen. There we go. Okay. Thank you for letting me come through here real fast, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do want to just give an update on some of the things that we've been doing just financially with the program. Typically, I'll go through and kind of talk about who we are and what we do. I think a lot of you know I've been here the last 4 years or so doing this. So the main focus that I've got today is van pool numbers. I did want to point out that our UTA team on the van pool team was 10. It's now 11. We have an extra head count because we've been adding onboard technology through GeoTab on our vans. So we're tracking van driver behavior, things like that. That's been a significant benefit to our program. So just looking at the administrative expenses for Weber Davis, it's on the bottom there. The qualifying expenses that we've received is just over 228,000. Oh, sorry, qualifying expenses of 228,000. The funds that we've received through the council for CMAQ is 127,000. So the difference there is just what UTA is putting into the program here.
Hey, Mike, your
Yes.
mic is cutting in and out. I'm not sure what, maybe speak a little bit closer to your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is this a little better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just go back to this slide quickly. So the qualifying expenses that we've received from Weber Davis is just over 228,000. That's the qualifying expense. We've received 127,000. The difference is 101,000. And that's just what UTA has been paying for through the program. So the CMAQ benefits from that for Weber Davis, we've reduced vehicle miles traveled by just over 3.7 million. And that equates to a reduction in 4,443 tons of emissions. So still have a lot going on there. We are down from our pre-COVID numbers still, but we are with the gas prices the way they are, we're significantly increasing our ridership just this year. I'll report again next year, but just so far this year, we've had 60 vans join since the beginning of the year. And we're looking at our board right now, we probably have about 40 or 50 that are waiting to join. So we'll be almost right at the pre-COVID numbers, probably by the end of the year. So I wanted to keep it short and sweet. So that's what I have. If there are any questions, I can try to answer those.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mike. Any questions before we move on to the next item? Okay, we don't see anything. So thank you for that update. And next, we have Tyler Lang. I hope I pronounced that right. ATMS annual report. Are you online with us? I don't see the name we're looking for on the screen. Last call for Tyler on the ATMS report. Tyler was on earlier. Okay. Well, if you are available and you want to jump in later on the agenda, that will be fine to do that later. Otherwise, is Ben online with a green bike?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, wonderful. Well, we'll turn the time over to you then.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to come and talk to you about Green Bike. I was told you guys would like an update on what's been going on lately. I apologize that I can't be there in person. I'm just getting over being sick, and the last thing I want to do is make anybody else sick. But let's go ahead and get started. Just let me know if you have any questions. So what's most important to us is obviously maintenance and safety. And it's really a pleasure to say that after 10 years of having bikes on the ground, we've had 0 fatalities. And of the thousands of users that we've surveyed over nearly a decade, less than 1% have rated our maintenance as poor, less than 1% have rated the cleanliness of our bikes as poor, and less than 1% have rated our customer service as poor, with everybody else rating it the majority good and a small amount fair. What we've been trying to do over the last few years is really hone in on what is our role in the marketplace. Obviously, lots of things are changing. The world is changing rapidly. And we really want to make sure that we're clear about what we're trying to accomplish. And the 4 things that keep coming up that are helping us determine how we spend our time and where we put our efforts are affordable, local, healthy, meaning the active transportation component, and then nonprofit driven. And I'm going to try and do a bit of a more detailed job of explaining why we've chosen these and why we think they're important. First and foremost, I thought that it's pretty great that we live in a state that is growing so quickly. And a lot of that has to do with the diligent efforts of the Wasatch-Front Regional Council. But this chart, it might be a few years old, but it really stuck with me. It's this idea that housing obviously is growing at a rapid rate, and it's very, very expensive. We always are listed in, the top 10 most overpriced cities, which I don't think is fair, but whatever. But the second is transportation. And as a nonprofit, we can't really control the cost of housing, but we think we can play a more important role in the cost of transportation. You can see that it's an even bigger expense for low-income families. 36% of their household budget is spent on a car. So we really want to make sure that we are providing an affordable and nonprofit-driven option. So we're trying to get people that are taking a bike or changing their behavior every day. And why we think it's important that there are as many options as possible, because they're going to suit different needs. If you are taking a scooter, for example, and you needed to get to and from work, if you were just taking a 20-minute ride in 2018, that would cost you about $2,000 a year. In 2019, that's up to $3,100. In 2020, $4,200. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is because they're not really designed to be use this for your everyday thing. However, Green Bike has never raised its price because we are a nonprofit. And our whole purpose is to provide as cost-effective transportation as possible for the community. And that informed our COVID response. So we had almost 700 local workers sign up for our annual pass promotion, where we gave 1 penny annual passes to any essential workers during COVID. We also increased our protocols and made sure that we staggered shifts, and we're disinfecting surface areas with higher more potent products. We also informed our affordable housing developments. So we have a variety of options, including all of the art space locations where it's, I believe, 35 to 70% of area median income, give communities an eco box, and then our equity program. So if you can't afford to pay $75 for a year, you can go through our equity program, which is for anybody that uses disadvantaged services, and you only pay $5 once, and you can pay in cash so the unbanked community can participate. And we really think that these initiatives provide options for a variety of members of our community. We also try and create more access-based initiatives where we're drawing attention to other projects that are also contributing to the community. Our local leaders ride, where every one of the local leaders that rode, we give 50 pieces of new winter clothing to the Homeless Youth Resource Center. We partner with Salt Lake City's Heart Kayak Court program. So we obviously have a lot of people that are having a hard time. And some of those people get warrants out because they are not showing up for court dates, and that prevents them from using the social services that they need. So Salt Lake City's Heart program put together these mobile courts where judges and attorneys go around and make sure that those warrants get taken care of so that people can get those services that they need. And Greenbike tries to provide alternative transportation along the Jordan River Trail so that that program can really grow. We also try and do several free ride days a year for a variety of initiatives. For example, promoting election days, completely nonpartisan, but just civic engagement, the LGBTQ community, and others. We also have a community bike where every time that bike gets ridden, we give $1 to the nonprofit that designed it. So we've had a Make-A-Wish bike, we've had a Utah Museum of Contemporary Art bike, we've had a Craft Lake City bike, and it's a fun way to do partnerships. But we also give donations to a variety of organizations, usually about 30 or 40 a year, that also work in the nonprofit space. We also see a key component of what we're trying to accomplish only possible through partnerships, something that I believe we've tried to learn from the Wasatch Front Regional Council's success. So the LDS Church has sponsored multiple stations. In exchange, we give all the people that work in their office towers free green bike passes, and this allows them to connect from the Front Runner North Temple stop up to their office towers. And it's one of the most successful programs we've ever launched. We've also partnered with Vestar. The Hive Pass is a wonderful program that UTA and Salt Lake City have put together that UTA was able to give us a grant. And now everybody that gets a Hive Pass, you get a free green bike annual pass with it. There's a custom RFID sticker on the back. And then recently we've had a lot more success working with private developers. Nearly a dozen different local developers have tried to engage us to get more stations. Very recently, just on August 6th, we launched the Ogden system with 6 stations and 60 bikes. And what's even more exciting is that there's enough funding available to triple that system over the next few years. We've also won some recent awards, including a Green Business Award, City Weekly's Best of Utah for Best Date Night, and then one of Utah Business's 40 Under 40 Business Leaders this year. And then in April, we hired a new executive director. So I transitioned from my role as the executive director to the director of strategic development. We're trying to have some of the biggest goals that we've ever had in the history of the organization. And to be quite honest, on that grand a scale, I wanted to make sure we had the best possible chance of making it happen. And I was only 20% confident that I could make it happen on my own. So I sought the guidance and skills of Stan Penfold, who was the executive director of the Utah AIDS Foundation for 23 years, and then spent nearly a decade on the Salt Lake City Council with multiple years as chair, where he was sitting right alongside Carlton Christensen. So what's next for us? Well, we've secured enough funding to expand the Ogden system by 150%. Expand the Salt Lake City system by at least 50%, more e-bikes for all those cities, plus more cities. We're going to have a massive expansion of the Salt Lake City service area over the next year, with focuses on the west side particularly, then the north side, but also some in Sugar House. We're also really excited about rolling out the option of 12-hour rides so that people can take the bikes much farther than they currently can. And it makes the overall system much more flexible for users. And we're really trying to think of what else can we do to incentivize getting people to ride the bikes. And one option is to make it free. We've heard UTA and other transit agencies around the country investigating this idea, and we're trying to understand those dynamics as well. I really appreciate your time for letting me speak with you today, and let me know if you have any questions.
That's pretty cool. Thank you, Ben. I learned a few things here today, so that was really interesting. Any closing questions or thoughts for him? Awesome, thank you. Now Tyler might join us at some point, so if we see him jump on, we'll give him some time, but let's go ahead to North Salt Lake, and I think you're here in person, right? So we'll let you take the stage and hear from North Salt Lake.
So I'm Karen Baxter. I am the city engineer for North Salt Lake. I don't know how to make it go to, there we go. So about 2013, we did a new general plan, looking specifically at transportation elements in our city. In 2016, we did the town center master plan, and in 2020, we did a new active transportation plan. So really, it's been about 10 years of effort to look at more than just what are we doing to our roads. So active transportation, we have some biking, some pedestrian issues that we've been improving, working on shared mobility, and obviously our trail connections. In our town center plan, we're focusing on the Highway 89 corridor. We have some real limitations with public transit in our area, and we're looking at new vehicle traffic patterns. We have some real challenges in North Salt Lake that are created by the I-15 crossings, the railroad crossings, and our I-15 and 215 access. So those are the kind of things we want to share about North Salt Lake today. So, you know, active transportation, our pedestrian bike trails, and then we're trying to do some connections to the Bonneville shoreline. So this is a map of our pedestrian and bike trails. Most of these were identified in the 2013 general plan. Nearly all of these trails are currently complete, many of which were done with funding through the programs here. There are still some trail connections that are pending on the Redwood Road side path. We have some gaps in it that we're working on, some of which, again, receive funding. And then the work that we need to do for hiking trails up near the Bonneville shoreline. But this was quite an extensive amount of work that we've been really successful at. So we have a Wild Rose Trail. There are the little black squiggly lines all over there. And we need a connection to the Bonneville shoreline. So one of the plans we have, that gold star, is where we want to make that connection. The blue line to the left is our recommended path, and the blue line to the right is an alternate that we're not real happy with. It's very, very long and winding. Currently, in between the gold star and the yellow line, which is the Bonneville Shore Trail, directly below it, there's a black line connecting. That was a user-created trail. And it's about 16%. It's very, very rocky. It's very dangerous. And so we're looking at these kinds of ways to improve mobility, not just for bikes and pedestrians in city, but also on our trail system. Public transit is not terribly great in North Salt Lake. So we're looking at things like rail systems and bus systems. So this is the existing transit map off the UTA site. There is a front runner station in Woods Cross, and then a number of tracks and front runner stations in Salt Lake. And you can see North Salt Lake's kind of right in the middle. We do have some active bus plans. We have good stationing on US 89 near City Hall, but it's been very difficult for us to access public transportation for many of our residents. The theory is too many stops create problems for users, and because we're so close to downtown, but we don't have a great access through. So one of the things we did with our town center and US 89 work, we're trying to identify how to create a more walkable community, specifically providing people with some alternate transportation. To date, we don't have a lot of a good progress to report, but we are attempting to improve the situation and work with the providers to come up with wins. So some of the stuff we're working on currently is getting public information out on the UTA rideshare program, the UTA On Demand, where they can access that front runner station in Woods Cross. We're also working with mobility users, so scooters, future green bike, those kind of programs where people could then access public transportation better. So the town center plan was focused on this area. And they came up with a recommendation that kind of surprised us. And that was they wanted to do a closure between Main Street and US 89. So in the very bottom section of the map, you can see that where we come off I-15 northbound onto that US 89 connection, what happens are people drive north on US 89, take a left on Main Street, then take a left on Center. And that accesses the west part of town. Because of that, we have tremendous traffic loads on an area that don't have street lights, and it's not really built for that traffic loading. We're doing a Main Street project in the spring. We're replacing water lines and doing an asphalt replacement. And so part of that work is it's our intent to close that intersection for traffic control while we do construction, which will give us the opportunity to test what will happen if we close that intersection before we commit to it. So the town center update includes a vehicle and a transit network. And then we also redid the pedestrian and bicycle network. So we've been fairly successful with a lot of these things. And most of that have come through the TAC committee. So I just kind of wanted to show what we've been doing and what we've been working on. North Salt Lake has some really significant challenges though. We have 3 I-15 crossings in our city. We have multiple railroad crossings and the I-15-215 access. So all of this is exacerbated by our zoning and land use. So this is kind of a map of North Salt Lake, and it's just the aerial, so it's a little difficult to pick things out. But this is pretty much North Salt Lake proper. The far left side, the west side of the city, is all residential. The far east side, everything east of I-15 is all residential. And the center part of the city is commercial industrial and heavily manufacturing and industrial. We have a number of trucking companies, including FedEx. We have an Amazon facility. We have a large number of trucking companies that are independent. We have a refinery on the south end that runs all kinds of vehicles up and down the street. So we have really, really heavy traffic loads. So what ends up with our transportation problems are that we have residential, commercial, industrial, manufacturing, and then residential again. And so we have mixed traffic loadings on these really busy streets. Well, the reason the Center Street and 1100 North are so significant is that we only have 2 places that we cross those railroads. In both of these locations, they are the only locations that east-west cross I-15, and the only locations that east-west cross the railroad tracks. 1100 North is 2600 South, to those of you who like Bountiful better, but they are for sure, these are major transit locations. We do have one connector that goes between those, that this is Main Street, but it goes underneath I-15, and it also has a railroad crossing. So the I-15 and 215 access is what makes things really complicated. So the arrow on the left at the bottom is the off-ramp from the 215 at Redwood Road. The arrow on the bottom on the right is where you get off I-15 northbound on the US 89 exit. So again, right at the tip of that arrow, people take a left, go down Main Street, take a left, go down Center. Or they can go straight all the way to the far end of town and take a left. But that access is primarily used by the 2600 South off-ramp there at the I-15 interchange. So what ends up happening is we have railroad tracks that cross all these locations. Because we're so close to the rail yard in Salt Lake City, that Center Street road gets blocked all of the time. There have been a number of at-grade crossing projects done to try and improve safety because there's all kinds of accidents. So if you block one or the other, the only access through the city, east-west, is at the very north end of the city or the very south end of the city. So this is where things got really complicated for us. Our biggest priority is public safety. We can't get police, we can't get fire trucks, we can't get ambulances through. A close second, of course, is traffic delays. So our Center Street crossing, the very right-hand side of the screen is that left turn off Main Street that I referred to. So then you go underneath I-15 and you cross 4 sets of railroad tracks, including ones that are spur lines for the refinery, where they take the tanker cars back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. We have at least 24 trains per day. We can't do a grade separation here because there's not enough room in between I-15 and the mainline tracks. To further complicate things, this is the only off-ramp. This particular I-15 exit only has one off-ramp for southbound traffic. It comes out in between I-15 and the first set of railroad tracks. So we would lose that access completely if we tried to redo this intersection. So the Main Street crossing, they're much further apart. The very bottom of the screen, we're crossing underneath I-15, and at the very top of the screen, just about clipped off, is the railroad crossing. There are, again, no other east-west access, and this is the only north-south branch that goes in between those two roads that are east of these railroad tracks to any degree. So 1100 north, you come off the 2600 south off-ramp at I-15. There are 4 tracks, 1 UTA, 2 UP, and then a spur line there. You then hit the Main Street intersection, and then there's a Woods Cross industrial lead on the side. This is the place that we identified as having any possibility of avoiding these stoppages and improving that transportation issue that we're facing. So this was the really rough original plan we had. The green is the new road relocation. We'd be moving the Main Street intersection very close to the spur line, taking a bridge to go over the 4 tracks. Those are estimated to have 24 trains a day. The spur line has a maximum of 7 trains a day, but in practice it has 1 or less. So the idea was if we can get over all of the mainline tracks, then we'd have the ability to bypass those stoppages, remove the problem we have with public safety, and really reduce those traffic delays that people are experiencing. Interestingly enough, about 5 years ago, the UDOT grade crossing safety group identified our crossings as amongst the 5 most dangerous in the state. So the bridge project was funded with a grant from the legislature. Grant's the wrong word. They allocated funds to us, and we've been doing environmental studies and feasibility studies and sent a preliminary proposal to Union Pacific. A couple of weeks ago, we got a response from Union Pacific that they have denied the request because they do not feel that moving the intersection that close to the spur line is going to be feasible. So they want us to put in a viaduct, which will go across all sets of tracks that will completely remove all of the connection at Main Street, because it would go completely over the 4 mainline tracks and the spur line tracks and connect down below, which then gives us the problem that if Center Street closes, we don't have any access to 1100 North for that transfer across. So we're still working on this, have not yet given up, but as you can see, that cross connection in between the thin yellow line north-south, if we lose the connection to that road and Center Street has a train, then absolutely nobody in the city can get across. One of the issues we have as far as outside of our control transportation issues is that I-15 off-ramp that goes north on US 89 doesn't have a west connection to 215. So all of the northbound traffic that's trying to reach our commercial industrial area can only take one of those 2 roads that crosses I-15 and the railroad tracks. If we had a connection from I-15 northbound to 215 westbound, all of that traffic could then take the Redwood Road exit and bypass all of those pinch points. So we're pretty good with our trails and our sidewalks. We're really struggling with some of these larger transportation issues. And I think that a lot of people are unaware. And so we just wanted to kind of share that with everybody. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Questions from the group? Anybody online want to pipe in with any thoughts or questions?
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation and good luck with Union Pacific. So, okay. Item 7, Safe Streets for All with Kip.
Hello, thank you, Robert. And Ben, I wanted to give a brief report. Are you seeing my screen and hearing me all right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, a brief report on our SS4A, Safe Streets for All program. This is a new program, part of the Investment in Infrastructure Jobs Act.
Hey, Kip,
Yes,
you're not in presentation mode. We're seeing all your slides.
you're not seeing progress report?
We're seeing it, but we're also seeing all of the queued up slides.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah,
You're not seeing it. Are you seeing the same thing?
we are, but that'll work. That looks good.
What was so the Safe Streets for All program has set aside $1 billion nationally for local governments, cities and counties. Other government entities such as transit authorities are also eligible for these funds. There's not a state formula, and these are not being administered through the MPOs. However, Wasatch Front was requested from a number of counties and cities in the area to prepare a action plan for the region. One of the requirements to qualify for the SS4A funds is that there first be a multi-jurisdictional safety action plan for the region. So that's where we're at right now. And that is the first bullet here on this progress report. That grant request was submitted last month. It represents the 6 counties associated with Wasatch Front, Box Elder, or most of Box Elder, Davis, Morgan, Salt Lake, Tooele, and Weber counties. And all of the cities within that will be addressed in this action plan. We expect the awards to be made in January of 23. The awards will be based on, it's not a formula, but there is the guidelines they are using are the number of fatal crashes in the 5 years from 2016 to 2020, and the rate of fatal crashes as a function of population. And another dimension they're using is the percent of disadvantaged population. And this is data that's collected by the federal government as part of the Justice 40 Act. Nationwide, that percentage is about 32% is identified as disadvantaged. The 6 counties in our application, we are at 22%. I don't know how that affects our grant award, but we'll find out. The disadvantaged community or DAC is identified by 6 factors, which are a composite of 22 factors. It gets rather convoluted, but there you see some of the factors that they're looking at: transportation access, health impacts, air quality, economic conditions, resilience, which I guess is a function of climate change, and then equity, which they are measuring as those that identify English as a second language. So those will be some of the criteria that they'll be looking at going forward. Once the action plan is complete, the cities and counties and other entities will have the opportunity to apply for implementation grants. And that will be between those local governments and the federal government. Wasatch Front will not be playing a role as a gatekeeper or whatever, similar to the other programs, funding programs in the TIP. Right now, for the action plan, we're putting together our request for proposal documents. We expect that action plan will take about 15 months to complete, possibly shorter. So just for members of the TAC committee to keep in mind, probably September of 24 is when you might anticipate having grant requests ready to send to SS4A for those funds. Show one other slide here, just kind of show this these same events in kind of a calendar view. One thing to point out is once the grants are awarded in September of 23, we have to put together a grant agreement. And that could take up to 12 months. We think it will only be a matter of weeks, but this is all new program, so we're not sure how that part of it works. And so we're limited what we can do as far as expending funds towards this effort until the grant agreement is in place. So we hope to learn more about that as we get ready to complete the action plan. But I wanted to make everyone aware of those funds that will become available and where we're at in the process. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Kip. If there's no questions, then we will proceed to item 8. This is another action item, and this is the,
Sorry, can I ask a question?
sorry, yeah, I jumped ahead of you.
Oh,
Sorry,
that's all
Alma.
right. I
Jump
was
in there.
slow in asking the question. What are the counties that were included? You mentioned 6.
Yeah, though it's just those 6 that the Wasatch Front Action Plan will address. I'm aware that Mountain Lands Association of Governments, they're doing a similar plan for Utah County, and I believe Summit and Wasatch are also included in their study. St. George may be doing one as well. Those are the only ones I'm aware of in the state.
So the 6 for WFRC are Box Elder, Davis, Weaver, Morgan, Salt Lake.
Yeah, did I not say Tooele? Tooele's in there.
Well, okay. You probably said, and I just missed it. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so Ben will present to us the 2023 schedule for this committee, and that will be an action item. So take it away, Ben.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if everyone hopefully should have a copy then of our TAC schedule for the 2023 year. On that schedule, the reason that we bring this to your attention and we want your approval on there is sometimes there's conferences or things that'll take the engineers or it will take the staff away from the ability to meet. This committee is critical. We want you to know and understand how important you are to the total process. So we don't want to create too much confliction if that's possible. So you can see that we've got the first meeting then in the first of the year of 2023 is January 25th. And we're proposing that we have a hybrid type meeting. Actually, in February, also recommend a hybrid type meeting when we do our roadshow. March 29th is the meeting that we're requesting that we have an in-person meeting, barring any catastrophe there, but that we meet. This is the meeting where we make recommendations that will carry forward to TransCom for the new projects. In April, there is no meeting. In May, we have a meeting on the 31st. Also propose that that be a hybrid meeting. With no meeting in June and no meeting in July this year, being that July's meeting would be awfully close to the 24th of July celebration, family vacations. So we're proposing that the meeting there at the end of summer be August 2nd. That's when we'll come to this committee with any public comments or input that was received or collected during the public review and comment period of time prior to the approval of the 2024 TIP. Then no meeting in September, and then our meeting in October, taking us 1 year from now. But the most important is if you turn to the second page or flip it over, and that's the schedule for refreshments, pending we have an opportunity to be in person. But also, this is also a schedule for the cities for their presentations. And so in January, we would have South Jordan in the Salt Lake West Valley area. We'd have Sunset in the Ogden-Layton urban area. And then you can see how the schedule lines up. I do want to thank, so Rosie took care, we do have some refreshments here at the office if you all want to make a beeline and come here for cookies and treats. But for those who are here, just thank Rosie for that. Are there any questions then on the draft schedule for 2023?
Anybody want to add some more meetings to that schedule, or is that adequate? Okay, if there's not any questions, anything else to add, Ben? Does that wrap it up?
That wraps it up. Thanks,
Okay.
Robert.
So I think we're looking for a motion to approve the schedule for this upcoming year. So we'll do a motion in a second and then be prepared to unmute. Okay, we have Paul Larson has moved to approve the schedule. Do we have a second?
I second that. That's Liz with Layton.
With Layton, thank you so much. Okay, go ahead and unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed to the schedule? Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you, Ben. We'll move forward into 2023 with a plan. And speaking of 2023, that's the next action item. I know you all attended today in hopes of being nominated for vice chair for next year. So just by way of clarification, so we're on the same page. This individual would be the vice chair in 2023, and they'll have a whole year to anticipate being the chair in 2024. So we'll open the floor for nominations of an individual. And now I suppose, Ben, the individual may not be present, but then we don't know for sure if they'll probably, huh? Yeah, but that's fine too. So. We'll take our time, wait for someone to be brave.
We really have a talkative group today.
I wish I
So-
knew the group a little bit better of everyone and their roles and how often they're here. Ben, I don't know if you have any suggestions of folks who have been very involved and are familiar with the process. But
Robert, maybe if I could throw something out. So where you're representing Box Elder County and in our current vice chair, who will be the chair next year, is Boyd Davis representing Davis County. Perhaps we get a new vice chair for 2023 from Weber County.
hey, hot seat, Weber County. It's not a hard job, so someone want to volunteer from Weber?
Would Brooke accept the nomination if given?
Hello,
Hello.
I'd be happy to set that nomination if that seemed fitting for the committee.
Okay, I'll make that nomination then.
Wonderful. Brooke are you from Weber County?
Yeah, Weber County.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll give a last chance. Any other nominations? Anyone, any other hats to be thrown in? And I don't know, is it appropriate, Ben, to simply accept that by acclamation with no other contestants in the field?
I'd say, Robert, you're the chair. You can
Okay.
do
If
what you
there's-
think.
If there's no opposition, then we'll go ahead and accept Brooke Stewart by.
Could there be a second?
Is there I guess we could ask for a second.
I'll second that
Alma?
nomination.
Thank you. So without any other nominations, we'll accept Brooke by acclamation with no other candidates. So thank you, Brooke, and thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. So just to wrap things up, our next meeting will be January 25th. Sunset is on the hot seat for some refreshments and project report. So anything else before we wrap up? Then we'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Maybe before that motion adjourns,
Uh-huh.
should we determine do we want to continue with the hybrid meetings and central out of our office? Or do we want to see if looking into Clearfield's? Or what would be the recommendations from the committee?
Great question. Any thoughts from the group? It feels a little lonely here. I kind of liked being in Clearfield with everybody, but
It would be good if we could do Clearfield for this group if it's not. That's
think-
central to the organization.
yeah, Boyd, you'll be the chair next year. Did you have some input there?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Clearfield or somewhere up this way might be good.
That's kind of 3 comments in favor. Any other alternate thoughts?
West Point City is also available if you want to do that.
Sure. And maybe it sounds like that would be positive, and maybe Boyd and Ben, you guys could solidify that. And if that's what works out for the chairperson next year, I think that'd be great to move that direction. And unless somebody pipes in with some strong opposition there, but. Any other thoughts, Ben, on that?
No, I think that would be good to potentially give opportunity for others to see other parts of the Ogden-Layton urban area, so might be good.
Yeah.
Transportation issues, if there are those who have to depend on any transit, we'd have to maybe take that into consideration, but if we're all good.
I think our refreshments hopefully will get put to better use with a bigger group, so. Okay. Okay, last call, otherwise we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Paul has moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Alma's always good here for a second. I appreciate that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I don't anticipate any opposed. So, thank you, everyone.